Welcome back to The Truth is Viral. My name is Bob Powell. I'm your host, and this is part 2 of a 3-part interview with Nancy Lieder, who claims that she's the spokesman for a race of aliens called Zetas here on Earth. And if you haven't watched the other parts of this interview, then please go ahead and click one of these links and it will take you to the part that you need to watch. I start off this segment having just asked Nancy what she thinks of the Book of Revelation in the Bible and if it has anything to do with her worldview of Nibiru. Our discussion continues when I ask her about the works of Zechariah Sitchin, who originally came up with the concept of Nibiru after translating Sumerian tablets. Now, apparently, the concept of the planet itself, the fact that it exists, is pretty much the only thing that Nancy Lieder and Zechariah Sitchin have in common, because she dismisses a lot of his other theories, and she even disputes his timeline for the arrival of Nibiru by several hundred years. Now, are there structures on the moon that were once used as laboratories by ancient aliens? Are there structures on the moon that are still today being used by aliens as laboratories and whatnot? Well, Nancy says that there are, and that there are photographs from the surface of the moon taken by NASA astronauts that have been retouched before they were released to the public, that astronauts and astronomers have been threatened with their lives if they reveal the alien presence on the moon or elsewhere in the skies. Is the New Madrid fault going to erupt? Is there really an underground city at Denver International Airport? Let's watch this and see what Nancy says the Zetas are telling her. Now, please remember to click on the advertisements when they appear.
Revelations was, I'm sure, book warning people, but there's more cut out of the Bible that was warning people of our times. The Book of Enoch, the Catholic Church, or the Church was trying to, knowledge is power. The third Fatima secret, that was hardly about assassination of a pope. That was about the bullshit. And they've covered that up. They know. The Catholic Church knows, and they're not warning people. It's terrible the way the elite of the world have decided that they can be trusted with this information, but the common man cannot. It's very self-serving. They don't want our messy panic.
I think that they underestimate humans. I really do. The church and the governments all treat us like we're a bunch of little children. But I don't see it that way. I think that we're grown up enough and adult enough to be able to accept the truth and deal with it, no matter what it is.
Okay, I'd like to ask you how this combines with the Annunaki and the Nephilim that have been associated with Nibiru since Zechariah Sitchin. How does that work in with your worldview on this?
Well, they have more service to sell on that planet than we do. They had more influences early in their early development, and so they're going to have to work that out. It take longer for people to migrate into that 95% service to other that normally develops. But they are human. They're hominoid, just like we are. They're not fallen angels. This is an attempt by antiquity to explain. Like the Bible is written so much in analogies and the like. And the same thing is true of the ancient Sumerians. They documented that the Annunaki claimed that they genetically engineered man. They did not. The Zetas say that they were just bragging. I mean, we have braggarts in our community too. And saying, oh, well, we created. They might have been tinkering with genetics, but they did not genetically engineer mankind. So you have to take analogies and bragging or misinterpretation of what ancients have tried to say. In the Hindu, it is the god Shiva who is planet X, or Nibiru. And it is god Kali, the dark blue gray wife of the second wife of Shiva, who is our dark twin, which is a second planet that balances normally exactly opposite us in our orbit. So we never see it because it's on the opposite side of the sun. But since we are stopped and halted by Planet X. It has come around. We took all kinds of photos of it coming around behind us. It's the same size as Earth, but it's a big black hunk of rock. Well, that's Kali and Shiva, Shiva's second wife. But that's analogies. It's pictures. It's a way to try to explain to the common man what's going to happen, what has happened, and warn them about the future.
Okay, just a question. Where do you think the genus Homo sapien came from? In the evolutionary record, there's a big gap. Everybody knows it as the missing link. And according to some theories, these Annunaki or Nephilim or whoever came down to Earth and genetically spliced their DNA with Cro-Magnon man or other earlier hominids that inhabited the Earth. So where did the modern human come from?
They have been genetically engineered, and Zetas early on explained that in the saga of Zetatalk. There were 6 different ape forms that were genetically engineered with a base that included, you know how they talk about Lucy as the common mother of everyone, everyone can trace back to Lucy. Boy, well, we somehow evolved out of being Negroid awfully fast. That's not so. There was Chinaman, and in Africa, then there was Caucasian white man. There was something in Angola that they called fuzzy man. He was covered with a fine fuzz that didn't survive. There was something in Indonesia called Indonesia man, who was barrel shaped and too slow to stay alive in fights with predators. And so I think there was also another, the Hindus, had a base ape, but these are different base apes, same genetic engineers using a mix, just like when we make cake, we always throw in milk and eggs, and then everything else may be different. So that's why we have similar blood types and similar genetics, that XY chromosomes that go back to Lucy or whatever, and the missing link was either on the moon where they had labs, or they would take them onto a desert island and work until they had what they were looking for, and then they would propagate that out someplace in the world.
Yeah, let's talk for a second about the moon labs. There's been a lot of talk about the photographs that have come back from the various Apollo missions being airbrushed and whatnot, and I think it's Buzz Aldrin said that there were indeed structures on the moon. And what do the Zetas have to say about that?
Yeah, and there's also that business about we never went to the moon. It was done in a theater. Well, it's both. They took film in like a building where there seems to be gravity and that type of thing, and a breeze blowing, in case they had to rely on that and not use the moonshots, because they couldn't count on the astronauts not to blurt out something like, "Oh, we're not the first," and that was, whoops, a slip. Absolutely, there's shards and dust covered so that you can't really see it from a distance. But when they were up there, they could tell that there had been structures on the moon. We weren't the first. And the astronauts are just told to keep their mouth shut.
Is there a reason why we haven't gone back to the moon since the last Apollo mission? Were we told to stay away?
According to the Zetas, they are not stating that. They are just stating that because there was evidence of the alien presence, and there was this huge cover-up not to tell humans, after Roswell and the like, not to let the public know. They were worried about slips and revelations. So they wanted, MJ-12, with its heavy CIA influence, wanted to stop it because it was likely to leak that the alien presence was real.
Let's talk about the silence from the scientific community for a moment. I have found that when you approach a serious scientist and want to talk about this subject, they clear the room like a bunch of scared little girls, and it's very difficult to get one to say anything at all about Nibiru. For example, when I asked Doug Gagan, the chief astronomer at the observatory, about Nibiru in 2012, he handed me this. And inside is a Wikipedia printout. I kid you not. This is supposed to be a serious scientist, and he thinks that he can just blow me off with a Wikipedia printout. I'm encountering resistance at Clemson University. I'm encountering resistance at University of South Carolina. And Nancy, I would like for you to explain to me why this is. Why won't these people talk to me?
Because it's the powers that be, the establishment, which is the very wealthy people, the political, powerful, heads of corporations, the people that are known to like run the world. They don't want your messianic. If they stated, well, you know that the planet that came into our inner solar system, periodically it passes through. When it does, sometimes it really tears up the earth. And therefore, the coastlines may not be safe. River bottoms may not be safe. All those cities along the coastlines, Paris, Hong Kong, Rio, New York, LA, name them. They're all on the coastline. Or like St. Louis, they're in the river bottoms. You really should be up in the hills. And how many people they're afraid you're going to quit your job. Plumbing won't be done. Manufacturing won't be done. You won't pay your mortgages. You won't pay your taxes. Or you'll come up to the government and you will demand, we know you're creating bunkers, so where's ours? And there is no space for you. Pay your taxes, and so that the elite, those people that decide that they are important to the world, they need to have a carry-on government or something, they're going to use your tax dollars for themselves, not for you. So it's a big hush up because they don't want your panic. They don't want your demands. So national security oath, don't you think that astronomers and like the people that work at NASA, where they see UFOs and aliens, etc., have to sign a national security oath not to talk about it? There's a big cover-up. It's the same deal with the alien presence, admitting that aliens exist. It's the people in power like to think that they're the tough. Everyone's looking up to them. Organized religion is absolutely against admitting that there's intelligent creatures from elsewhere visiting, or that they even exist. So they have to sign a national security oath. I am not going to talk about aliens because there's a cover-up, because the Defense Department or whoever, they fear that if they say, aliens are out there, it's real, then the next thing someone's going to say is, well, are they going to come after us? How are you going to defend us? And then they would have to say, oh, we can't. They have these spaceships, zip, go off, disappear into another dimension, and we cannot defend you. And then people are going to say, well, why are we paying all this money for a Defense Department then? They're afraid the common man is going to look up to aliens and look down upon the people that run the world. There's a lot of reasons for the cover-up of the alien presence, but it has to do with people protecting their position of power. So, national security oath. Do not talk about aliens. Do not talk about Planet X, which you are seeing, because we don't want messianic. We don't want people getting cozy with aliens and thinking that we are not important as we like to think we are. And if you breach this oath, off to Gitmo with you or something worse.
And what about amateur astronomers? Surely they can't silence all of them. Why haven't they come out and said something, or have they?
Oh, they have. And on my website, which started in 1995, we have all these amateur photos, right? In 2001, 2, and 3, we were tracking it inbound because it was out in the night sky. The Zetas said, look at this raw and deck position. That's where it'll be on this date. And we were tracking it. It was a moving dim star. People saw it at observatories. They captured it with infrared in observatories on 3 different continents, Africa, Europe, and the U.S., in 3 different teams we had going. Saw it at observatory, infrared, CCD imaging in the winter that it was when it was coming in. And those FITS files are still out there for people to pull down and see and see where we were tracking it. Amateurs don't know where to go with this information. They go to their astronomers, and the astronomers tell them, and I've seen this done, You don't know what you're looking at. You don't know how to use a telescope. You don't know what you're talking about. We're the experts. And that happens all the time. We tried to report this inbound planet because we were challenged on Sci-Astro Usenet. Well, go register it with the IAU, which is, I think that's IAU, Minor Planet, near Harvard, where they keep track of naming comets and naming planets. And we tried. We tried to submit it, and they refused to take the submission no matter how many times we tried. In other words, I don't hear you. They just don't hear the amateurs, or they belittle them. And the amateurs have nowhere to go but the internet. Most of them find their way into the place like Zetatalk, where I say, okay, here's the Planet X photos. Explain this. Too many people all over the world over the years recording things next to the sun. Now it's showing up on Soho in stereo. As, get this, the winged globe, the ancient Sumerian winged globe, a globe with the big wings, and it showed up just looking almost identical to what the ancient Babylonians and Sumerians used to draw as a depiction of this traveling planet. And I thought that was like, oh, it's traveling, so it's got wings. But no, it looks like that. And it was stunning. And I have all this on my website, these images, and they can't explain it. So now we have, as it's coming closer to us, the moon swirls, and the dust around the moon swirls. So now NASA has emerged saying, oh, we have colliding asteroids. We just discovered that we can take pictures of these colliding asteroids and blowing poof of dust. And my goodness, they look just like those early photographs of, Planet X coming inbound, or the moon swirls that are showing up on Soho and stereo. They're BSing. NASA will BS like crazy until we're having so many earthquakes and plate movement, and it signs in the sky, and it's undeniable what's coming at us and that they've lied to us. And then good luck finding them. They'll be down in their bunkers.
That brings up a subject when you were talking about Soho images. I've seen in certain spectrums, the green especially, I can't remember what spectrum of light that records, but there are things orbiting the sun, and they are huge. And NASA says, oh, well, that's just a bad pixel, or it's a piece of dust on the lens. Well, bad pixels and dust on the lens are going to stay there. They don't move. So what are these things?
Actually, because this is a 2D picture, the satellites are somewhat outside of Earth, but not that far from Earth, and the sun is way away. Well, you can't tell how close to Earth those things are. They look like they're close to the sun or crossing the sun, but they're just in the picture. Those are moons. Those are part of the debris that is always around Planet X. The big moons will never strike Earth. They don't come that close because the gravity draw is Nibiru or Planet X itself. But they are slinging out there. This is a vast dust cloud filled with debris, and over 24 moons that are at least as big as ours. That's what's been captured, and you're quite right. The explanations are pathetic.
What about the Norway Spiral and similar events that are taking place around the world? What are those?
This is a charged dust cloud, and it's been wafting over our planet for some time, since 2003 to some degree. We got neon clouds that show up now and then. Cavemen had spirals written on the walls and all over the world, very primitive, and usually with signs of some disaster, like dead fish along the stream depicted, or some such, or pointing up, little cave stick creatures pointing up. It's caused by, it's a magnetic swirl. If you have something magnetized up in the atmosphere, other things are going to be attracted. There's going to be a motion started just by the fact that it's not static. Once you have any kind of motion, voids are created behind and pulling in, and now you've got pushing going on. Swirls develop very readily, which is why we have little tornadoes in our bathtub and toilets when we flush. And this is what it is. Now it looks like blue lightning coming down, and according to the Zetas, it was just the magnetic swirl, which, because electrons and magnetons have an attraction for each other, they wanted to ground. The electrons accumulated and wanted to ground, and it was like a lightning flash, but different.
So then, the appearance of the Norway Spiral just as President Obama was landing in Norway to accept his Nobel Peace Prize. Yeah, President Obama has fired more cruise missiles than any Peace Prize recipient in the history of the world. But I just had to do that. So that was just a coincidence? That wasn't a message being sent to him?
It was a coincidence because they are showing up, and they've shown up in China and other places, little swirls, not that large. And a couple recently, I can't remember where, people thought they were UFOs, but they are not. They're little blue swirls, and we're going to see a lot of that. As you can imagine, if it's showing up on caveman drawings associated with big geological changes and dead fish in the river, well, this red dust causes the fish to die. They go belly up, and it's bitter, and humans find it very hard to even drink the water. So therefore, we're going to see a lot more of this.
Okay, let's go back to the underground shelters. We've got the seed banks, again, in Norway. That's an obvious clue that, something's going to happen, because when they emerge from their shelters, they're going to need to be able to plant crops and whatnot. At the Detroit International, or not the Detroit International Airport, but the Denver International Airport, there is murals on the walls, and they depict some type of cataclysm. And the airport was dedicated by the New World Airport Authority, which doesn't exist. Is the area underneath Denver International Airport one of these shelters?
It's really, that was an obvious slip, I think, by the powers that be. Of course, Denver is going to be like Western White House, as it's called. It used to be Crawford, Texas, but it's scheduled to be the place where everyone's going to run when Washington, D.C. gets too flooded, by the sloshing of the Atlantic. It's right on the Atlantic. It's lowland. It's a swamp, really. And they're all going to move to Denver. Kokomo, Indiana is another site where they've got tunnels and burrowing, and they establish a government outpost there, too. So, sure, those murals clearly, it's very martial law kind of feeling, with the depictions. And they kind of slipped. Somebody got pretty arrogant, in saying, when these times appear, this is where we're going to come. Lots of levels, lots of tunnels. That whole area is not going to be a pleasant place to live. And I'm talking about the general Denver area, not just Denver itself.
Why is that?
Because you're going to have all these arrogant politicians and barking generals running around. And then when they run out of food, they're going to go out into the local area and take what everyone stored or has and conscript the locals to go out in the whole fields or whatever, slave labor under the name of reestablishing government, the continuity of government, like we all need politicians when the whole world is broken up, no electricity, no phone, no food distribution, and we're all out there gardening, raising chickens and goats and fishing. And, that's when we need politicians to come and collect our food as in exchange, because money isn't worth anything and food is. So that's our taxes.
Something strange happened in this last segment of the interview. For some reason, my screen capture software decided to stop recording video and only record audio, but at least I did manage to capture it all. And in this last segment, Nancy talks about how the United States government is using the Federal Reserve to basically plunder the wealth of the nation in order to give the elite the capital to buy the things that they're going to need to build the underground structures and buy the meals ready to eat and buy their own private mercenary armies and everything that they're going to need to survive in a post-Nibiru apocalyptic world. And when is this all going to happen? Well, let's see what Nancy says. And in lieu of her video, why don't y'all just sit back and enjoy this sunset with me. It's rather peaceful, rather chilly, but peaceful. We'll just click on the link and let's watch this last segment.